Welcome back to the lab. Today, I have my good friend Jeremy Combs here.
What's happening?
And Jeremy has a great, interesting story. And it's one of the things in my life that I truly have pleasure for because I come across so many individuals, and I've been saying this before as I do my podcast, that I'm grateful for people like you in my life. You shared something with me early on. And we went to this program just for a little backstory. It's called Choice, Emotional Intelligence course. Very, very difficult course, emotionally speaking, because it exposes so much of who you are, because we just don't do that every day. But the self-reflection, bro. Mm-hmm. The self-reflection is such a hard thing of how we're showing up in the world. And being in sales and being, putting it lightly, inauthentic, because in our business, we always have to put that smile on and positive. And regardless of what's going on in the world, we have to maintain this, quote, attractive personality. And then our alter ego takes over. And the ego continues to grow until we fight it so bad that we don't realize we just became the alter ego.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first guys, literally to my face, to rip the mask off and say, dude, this is not you. And I was all.
Yeah, I totally remember that conversation. It was one of the first times we were having dinner, and I just told you, like, you've been drinking the Kool-Aid. You are actually believing all the stuff and the bullshit that people are feeding you, and you just stopped dead.
Especially in our business of real estate in general, we're especially when you're producing at a high level, you're getting coddled. Everybody's like, oh my God, come work for us. Dude, Jeremy, you're doing so great. Dude, you're successful. You're this guy. And then you start getting a level of success amongst your peers. And it's weird because we have that concept of fake it till you make it. But then the fake it doesn't stop. Even when you make it, you just keep faking. And then, agents that are not producing, they get the white BMW on the lease and just the typical piece. But you're staying in that alter ego for so long, it becomes consuming.
Yeah, but I don't even think it's just about real estate though either.
No,
I think it's
no.
all professions, but that's also why it's important to have such a strong friend group and pit crew, right? People that can call you on your BS, your wife, your significant other. I was actually just having this conversation with another agent about the power of your partner, because they have to be able to see, and your friends too. Like, Anthony, here's what's in your blind spot. And you have to sit there and take it, and you have to come, because there's two sides, right? You can say no, right? Yeah. Or you can be like you did in Choice, and Choice kind of creates a situation where you're forced open to receive that kind of feedback. Yeah. Because you can be very defensive, because that alter ego can be like, no, this is who I am, and try to defend the way that you've been acting and portraying yourself.
Yeah. You bring up a really valid point. And I was doing a coaching call, because obviously with the podcast, trying to get content going and getting in front of the camera, because I can speak in front of 300 realtors. I've never had that problem. As soon as we started doing the video, I'm like, and I still have a hard time. I'm working on it. I'm forcing myself through this, right? And I'm on the phone with my editor, and he's giving me some advice. And my wife overheard the advice, and I knew it was going to come. And when it's from like a working professional, you're like, yep, you nod. You're not being rude about it, right? And then all of a sudden, from the corner, she's like, I was going to tell you. And immediately my shield went up. What do you mean? What are you talking about? She's like, see, I can't even tell you. And it becomes this conflict, right? And I literally, at that moment, I was like, you just did it. You got that. I guess you can use a term like a trigger, right? Because when it's somebody who you find near and dear to your heart, it's almost even not just harder to receive the feedback from them, at the same time, I don't know. It's just,
so then you think about this, because this happens to me. I'm sure it's happened to you, and it happens to everyone listening or watching. You hear something from someone else, like your coach, and you're like, oh, babe, check this out. She's like, I told you that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wasn't in the place to hear you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? That happens to me with Serena all the time. Yeah. All the time. She's like, I told you that. And the thing is, I forget right? She doesn't forget.
Yeah.
She remembers every single little detail.
I was on my third slice of the apple. You were standing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I totally agree. And I think that, it's hard. We're humans, right? And there are days that we are open, and then there are days that are not, because it's just keeping us safe, right? And the vulnerability. And I think this year of my marriage, I learned that on a deeper level, just being completely vulnerable with my wife and saying, real estate has been hard this year. Like, I'm scared, literally, babe, I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel
because she doesn't see that, because part of what I believe is when I walk through the door, my family doesn't need to pay for or know what happened at work. My kids don't care that I'm Jeremy Coombs from WFG National Title or University Title. I'm daddy.
Yeah.
So I hold stuff in, and I don't talk about it, because it's like my protection mechanism, because I just want to be the loving father. And you're talking about alter egos, because I leave my job when I leave my job, and I drive home in silence to decompress and become daddy and husband. Because if I don't, and I let that filter into my life, then my kids and my wife might pay for something that they had nothing to do with.
Yeah, you bring up a very, very good point, and you're right. It's not unique just to real estate. It's applicable to anybody in business. When your business is getting difficult and getting hard and getting dry, and you don't want your kids to ever feel your stress. That would be such the downer for your kids to experience what you're experiencing. So we protect them from that kind of stuff.
I mean, it happened to me. My dad would come home and rage if he had a bad day at work. We paid for it.
Everybody knew about it.
And I hated it. And I promised myself, like, I will not be that. But what I found is sometimes that is also a burden, or it's a hindrance, because then I'm not actually talking about what's going on. And so that's what I was saying with the vulnerability of saying, hey, babe, this is actually what's going on with me at work. I just want to tell you so you know, and it doesn't cause friction in our relationship.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And I think that it also has to be very tempered. And it's weird. The reason why we're talking about some of these things is because the things that we happen to learn in choice, recognizing that, number one, we do have this mask we put on. And it's one of those things also that it's a choice. You have a choice to put the mask on, good and bad, right? It became a bad tool, but some of the exercises that we did was like, okay, now you're an executive. Now you're this. Now you need to be an artist. And you had to pull that from yourself and say, oh, wow, wait a minute. This is now a superpower. You mean to tell me I can put a different mask on so it suits my occasion, but I'm still in control. I'm morphing to my environment. At the same time, you have your conscious and your subconscious dilemmas. So like a subconscious dilemma is expressing to my wife how difficult the real estate business is. And I can express to her how hard it is, but I don't necessarily want her to feel how hard it is, because then she's going to get stressed and she's going to take it completely different than how I'm going to take it. Mm-hmm. I'm taking it from from a masculine perspective of make the decision, stay critical, I'm going to drive. From a feminine perspective that has the empathy, is going to feel the difficulty, it's going to feel the stress, it's going to feel the strain. And I don't want to fill her cup with that. So there's that temperance.
Yeah, and it's our job to keep them safe in the masculine energy, right? It's our job. That's the role we've accepted, right? And so when you do that, you're right. The feminine energy is a little chaotic and starts to feel that. And you don't want that. You're like, I have to deal with this stress on my own. I don't want you to have to. But then it causes problems in different ways. So
resentfulness.
Yeah.
Because but you don't, dude, I've been protecting you from this whole time. You don't know how I feel. I feel unappreciated. I feel taken advantage of. I feel blah, 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 blah. What was me? Victim, mm-hmm. Right? Which it also has a valid point, but that's the dual-edged sword, because you're trying to protect one half from the exposure of it. And on the other half, you're like, well, how can they have a level of appreciation if you don't express the sacrifices that you're making?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you just got to pick and choose, right?
Yeah.
That's what we have to do. And you have to pick and choose what you talk about, what you share, And then what I also found though is the more I shared, the stronger I found out she was. And I have to give her credit for that. Like there were some moments where she stepped up and was super strong when I needed her most. Right? You start to find, even though at first it is chaotic. There's a little chaotic and there's some emotions that end up happening.
Yeah.
What I found specifically with Serena, she's a lot stronger than I ever allowed her to be. And she grew into this such a powerful woman that had I not shared how I was feeling, I wouldn't have given her the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And also on the masculine side, it gives you a chance to be held in your feminine. Like I just need a hug right now. That's all I need is a hug and some love. And it's amazing how that fills you back up. It's like, and I'll speak specifically for me, right? Like when my wife pours into me, gives me that love, it's like, I'm ready to go back to war, right? Like I'm ready to go back and take on the battle of whatever I was facing, right? You filled my cup back up.
Yeah. I think what really goes underrated in those types of environments is when we get gifts of servitude, and it's ways of showing love. It's like, hey, babe, I know you had a hard work today. I made you dinner, and it's ready for you. And you're like, wow, thank you. Like, you don't understand how much I really appreciate this right now. I didn't eat the entire day. I wasn't even thinking about eating right now. And man, at least somebody's thinking about my well-being at this time. That's where the appreciation is just, it's limitless. And I think, but you also have to allow it to happen. Because I was very much the guy, I would come home and I got to a point, and you know this, I got to a point where I was like, oh shit, nobody gets up to greet me. Oh man, I don't even have food made. Oh man, like, I was in that victim kind of mentality just because of the grinding every day, and nobody's a mind reader. So what had to really shift after going through the program was being the person I wanted in other people. So come home, greet my kids, and be consistent with it nonstop, and don't expect for it to change overnight. And come home and walk down the hallway and say, hey, I'm home. Hey, I'm home. Now, bro, it is so different. I'll walk through the front door. My kids get up. They give me a hug. They give me a kiss. Hey, Pops, how was your day today? It was a good one. It was good. But you know what? You guys just made it all worth it right now, just for the fact of a little bit of appreciation for Pops. Like, man, thank you so much.
Well, because you led the family. You showed by example, right?
Yeah.
You had to, because remember, people treat us the way we teach them to treat us. And whatever along the way, you actually probably didn't want to get talked to a lot of days coming through the door. And it wasn't until you had this shift in perspective, they're like, wait a second, I'm missing this. And this is what I really want. But you had to lead, because, when you see someone who says they're going to change, yeah, right. And it's not until their behavior changes and you see it consistently that you're like, okay. And I can give the perfect example of my own life with quitting drinking. I was the owner of a happy hour magazine. I quit drinking. I was
so ironic, right?
Yeah. And I quit drinking and I was out Friday night. I quit drinking on a Monday. Friday night I was out, and people kept trying to, no, Jeremy, no way. Like shot. No. It took 6 months before people actually believed that I quit. And that's February would be 15 years, 15 years. So, but back to my point is, like, I had to show how I changed for people to believe me with my behaviors. And I think that a lot of people miss that point. Like, well, I said this, but your actions didn't actually back up what you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very powerful. And it's great that we're talking about this, because I think right now, especially in our industry, there's a lot of struggle. We know that in real estate, there's not as many transactions to go around as there used to be. Even if you get into a transaction, the likelihood of something canceling because for whatever reason, the uncertainty and the buyer side, the payment shock, all these different things are going on. It's the most challenging I've ever seen the real estate industry right now. At the same time, had I not gone through something like that, I wouldn't be looking at it as a form of opportunity as well. Because during the last 2008 cycle, when everything was imploding, we used to compulsively go on ML implode. Like, what's the next company going under? Oh my God. And the drama. And oh my God. And then now fast forward when COVID hit, dude, it was like one of the best things because we were like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Remember, we used to have our calls. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to double down. We're going to go so hard because everybody else is going to be stuck in the drama, and we're going to stay focused on our business, and this is what's going to happen. And so we did. And all of a sudden, we were doing great. And it was really kind of a strange dichotomy that you had a portion of the business, people in the business that were like, oh my God, this is so hard, blah, blah, blah. And then our side was like, what do you mean? Crushing right now. But we also had to detach from what was happening in everything else, and also reappreciate the things that were more special to us. Loving our kids and appreciating the love and our spouses and appreciating the love for that, and finding the reasons, not finding the reason why. It's easy to say as a cliche, like, this is my why. It's another thing to be like, you know what, even in this fight right now, I don't even want to fight because I love you that much and I got more things to do. I got to go back to work and battle. Mm-hmm. This is more important.
Well, I think what's interesting is, like this year has been hard, and I myself went through a dark period this year. And what I realized is that life really is just a paradox. It is both simultaneously a prison and a paradise, and it just depends on how you're looking at it. Whatever filter you're looking through right now is how you're going to see it, because everything is happening. You get to choose. And so when I stepped out of my prison, it was magical, the paradise that was happening, and all of these things started happening, and business was slowing down. Yet I was still producing, and I'm expanding into other markets. Now I'm in San Antonio, San Diego, Houston, and the company's going to allow me to move to DFW because I'm able to scale. But 6 months earlier, that wasn't happening because I was in the prison. Mm-hmm. And this sucks. And I wasn't talking and bringing the energy and the certainty which you're speaking of. Because the truth is, transactions are still happening for lots of people. Mm-hmm. It's just we have to go out and find them. And the skills that used to be before COVID, because a bunch of people got into our industry because you could stick a sign in the ground or join whatever profession.
It was Goldilocks.
Yeah. And now you have to have skills. There's back to the skills game, back to the skills market, the skill of prospecting. People forgot that skill. Not everyone. Because you see people are still crushing it. And the people that are still crushing it were prospecting in some form or another.
Here's what's really strange about that. So I was on the phone today, my buddy James McDonald. He is he runs Proctor Coaching for the United States. So that's Proctor Coaching, right? In our conversation, one thing exactly came up with what you're saying. So he says, if you rewound 5 years ago, an agent could look like a producer because they had a good sphere of influence. They just knew a lot of people that happened to know they were in real estate. There was no convincing them about why they should get off the fence. There was no defined method of moving someone along the conveyor belt. Because it was easy. The person hey, Jeremy, I know you. You happen to be in real estate. Hey, we're thinking about buying this house. Yep, my rent's going up. How soon can I get in? I see prices are going up. And it's like, you just basically respond like, okay, let's go take a look at it. And I think you should have put 20,000 over. Okay, cool. They already liked and trusted you. That was already over. It was done. And they already knew you. And so our conversation goes, okay, let's fast forward to today. Especially if you're doing like internet leads. Number one, they don't even know you. So number one, you got to get I'm on the phone, just in general. It's get a conversation going. Number two, you can't skip to try to put offers in. You got to get them to like you. So let's go face to face day one. Like, let me understand who you are and what things are important to you. And let's work on that. That's number two, right? Now you like me. We had a cup of coffee. You seem like a cool guy. I'm willing to work with you. Number three, now I got to get you to trust me. So now that we're going on this real estate journey together, I'm going to help educate you to understand, and I'm going to help protect you from yourself to make sure that we write contracts and we put offers effectively and that you're going to be happy with it, right? So those 3 steps were skipped 5 years ago. There was no, hey, let me get you motivated. Hey, let me get to know me, get to like me. And so now the people that were already doing 6, 12, 15 transactions that had to do that versus those that didn't have to do that now have to either learn a new skill set, which is making them feel uncomfortable, or change out of the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard Gary Keller give a talk, and he said that was a speed market. That will never happen in our lifetime again. That's what maybe not, we don't know, right? But it was a speed market. Now it's back to skills. So yes, it's learning those skills of how to run a business, right? Direct response marketing, phone calls, relationship building. And the crazy thing is, like, what I believe, the principles of real estate are still the principles of real estate. How we utilize and implement those principles has changed a lot. You don't have to make phone calls all the time,
bro.
You could be social media. If you were consistently putting out content on social media with videos, you have business. If you consistently call, you have business.
Yeah.
We have a good friend, Ryan Ahern, door knocking machine. He started door knocking again. Got a scooter, door knocked the hills of La Jolla,
Bro.
$17 million listing.
I was going to say, because he has like fat listings.
He has a $37 million listing. He door knocked in La Jolla.
Yeah.
He went back to the old school, what he knew how to do, which is door knocking. And his business is really, really picking up because he went back to his skill set, which is door knocking. And people say, oh, I can't door knock. And it's just they're scared. But what's worse, being scared because you have no food, or being scared of what someone might say on the other side of the door?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly right. Well, you know Jocko too.
Yeah.
So one thing I learned from him, and I've shared this a few times on our podcast, is that when we were training rookies in the business back in 2012, he says, the tactics are always the same. It's the application of tactics is what changes. So what used to be door hangers and what used to be door mailers, you can do that. Now, you also have social media and targeted posts and targeted ads. We used to put things in the newspaper or the penny saver or Craigslist or whatever, but now you have these other tools. The activity in itself of being present is exactly the same. The medium might change a little bit, but the fundamental, it's no different. People say it's a people business. Door knocking has not changed.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing as it was yesterday.
The crazy part about door knocking is, at least when they answer the door, you're talking to a human face to face, right?
Yeah.
You can see them, which changes. It's a lot easier than a phone call, right? Or a social media ad or response. Like, I can look you in the eyes, and in a second, I know if I'm going to trust you or not.
Yeah.
Right?
You also fast forward the process really fast, because at least if somebody's an online quote lead, it's just somebody who raised their hand saying, I'm interested in real estate. When you're door knocking, it's either yes or no. That acceleration of the curve of getting them to, number one, get to know you day one and getting them to trust you day one, it's an uncomfortable feeling for a lot of people. But to your point, I think it's way more uncomfortable having bills come in the mail and seeing them stack on the kitchen counter. At what point does the pain need to be great enough for you just to get out of your own way and do what you need to do?
Well, the pain has to overcome the fear. That's the only part someone will change, is the pain feels bigger than the actual fear of doing whatever the change is. So, but the fear, this is just my own experience. I only really have fear when I'm unprepared. If I spent the time preparing for whatever I'm about to do, and it doesn't matter if it's sports, husband, dad, career, I don't have that fear, right? Like I can stand up and teach in front of, it doesn't matter how many realtors are there. I know I'm good at my job and I'm confident in that. Now, if I had to speak on a topic I didn't know, there would be fear there. So door knocking, if you're prepared, and I've been teaching this a lot lately, we're in a time where you need to lead people. You got to have 100%. A plan. Right? You got to have a plan. So when I come to talk to you about possibly selling your house or buying a house, it's a plan. Yeah. And I'll go back to Ryan, because Ryan is super insightful. And he says, Jeremy, there's never a bad time to buy. There's a bad plan. And it's so true. But even for the buyer's plan, but when you're a seller, okay, where are you going to go? Because people are sitting on 3% interest rate. Like, why would I sell my house? Most people don't understand. So to say, hey, actually, I can get you a house in a better location where you really want to live, and you're actually going to get a better deal because we can get seller concessions and you can do buy downs but having that plan of like, here it is.
That's right.
And, or, okay, this is a move up you're moving up, you can still keep this house, but and just have understanding real estate has so many different niches and facets and paths that you can take someone. But most people that I talk to don't actually sit and think about, how am I going to talk to Anthony and be ready for, if he asks me a question, I have the answer to go here, here, or here.
You know where the missing piece is in a lot of this now? And it's funny that you mentioned this, is I was talking this to James. I said, I'm going back to being a listing lender. And he was like, listing lender? I'm like, yeah, I go with my listing agents and I help with the financial side of things to explain it. And then my listing agent just like looks good. Yeah. He knows enough of the lingo, but I'm there breaking down the calculations. So we got somebody selling $1.5 million house here. They're going to buy another $1.5 million house closer to some family. And they're really the same thing. They have a 3% interest rate. They're like, how are we going to afford this? So I'm starting asking like very probing questions, like, mind me asking, how old are you guys? And he's like, I'm 57. And I'm like, oh, perfect. Did you know you can transfer your property taxes from this existing property to the new property? How much did you pay for this one? It's $750. I'm like, wow, how much is your annual taxes? He's like, $8,000 a year. I'm like, well, as long as you buy at or below what you just sold, then we can go after closing and get your taxes reduced to this existing one. So out the gate, we just had a problem solved of the affordability of $800 a month in payment. That was just that. Then we kept continuing, right? We just kept on drilling down. He's like, I really want to do an ADU in the back. I'm like, what are you going to do with the ADU? He's like, well, I want to rent it to my daughter. I'm like, is she going to be contributing to payments? So I'm not trying to go over the whole scenario, but the point is that we were drilling down for solutions. I was focusing on the numbers piece to try to get them to be comfortable on the deal. After we're done, my agent was like, bro, that was sick. I'm like, what do you mean? Like this, we're just doing our job. He's like, that's $3 million in deal. I'm like, right there. And so he's like, you're going on all my ride-alongs now. I'm all, dude, I can't. I'd love to. There's only so much of me to go around. But I
can for a price.
I can for a price, right? We'll work on this, bro. We'll work on this. But but the point is I think leveraging partnerships that are on the same wavelength with the same objective in mind, with coming up with solutions, and to your point of having your very defined scripts in the direction of where you want the conversations to go is critical now more than ever.
Mm-hmm. And I think an interesting piece that you didn't really mention, you have instant credibility because the listing agent brought you.
That's true too.
Right? He brings you as the expert. They don't question if you're the expert. You are the expert. Yeah. So I think that is a super important piece, and to your point of leverage, of using people inside the industry or connections or whatever you need to do to help move the needle.
Yeah.
And there are so many great people in this industry, and yet people get stuck. And actually, I'm in title. So, I always hear, I got my title guy, or I got my title person.
Yeah.
And it always boggled my mind. And I understand loyalty, but there are so many good people that do so many things that you might be actually I could be the missing piece that your business explodes. And in fact, I know I am.
Yeah.
Right. That's my ego.
That's your ego. Yeah. But to your credit though, you were already a top performer in the San Diego market. You moved to a brand new state, reestablish yourself there, and jump into multiple cities from scratch. Mm-hmm. And then within a short period of time, become the top guy in that market. But that only goes back to your credit that you worked a very systemized plan that you preach.
Well, so I'm not the top in the market yet.
Well,
right. I'll get there.
Yeah.
I'll get there. Here's the thing. People try to make Texas and California so different. It's not. The principles are the principles. The game is the game. The field changed. There are some nuances like home field advantage, right?
Yeah.
There might be a couple rocks in a spot on a ground ball. It's going to jump up a certain way because that's your home field. There are little nuances, but the game is the game. And I refused to allow other people to tell me how I could play the game because I was successful in San Diego. And then I was like, I know, because it's real estate, it's people. I know the value that I bring my clients. Like I'm 100% confident that I can help an agent no matter what they do. So it was just a matter of saying, okay, I know how to do this. I know how to talk to people. I know how to call. I know how to text. I know how to market. It's even better in Texas because I can do direct response marketing. I'm not limited by the rules here by SB 133 in San Diego, like in California.
That's nice.
I can take someone to coffee.
Yeah.
I can stand up and teach a class about AI or social media or things like that weren't prohibited from doing.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of knowing like I can help people. I know how to scale, right?
You got lucky. You actually went to a place where you got the handcuffs taken off. Because you already had the skill set. This is things that you had to do on a one-on-one scale, but now you're able to do it like on a group level.
Yeah. Yes. And I learned the hard way. I made mistakes. I'm just starting to really take off, and I'm in year 3. So it was learning and adapting to things and trying my systems out, right? Like fixing the system. And then I've done pretty good in San Antonio where they said, okay, you can help in Houston. Here's a certain market that you can, and if you do that well, then we'll allow you to do it in DFW. But what I did was just not allow people to tell me things are done this way.
This is how we do it in Texas.
But title period. This is how it's always going to be done. So it has to be done this way. Well, the world has changed. And I know that. And I think that real estate is antiquated. And so I just started implementing some of my stuff, but also keeping some of the old school, right? It's just changing it here and there, and it's working, right? It's starting to really, really work. But if I had not actually believed that I could do it, and I just listened, and I think that that's part of something we were talking about. This market is hard, but it depends on how you look at it. It's how you talk to yourself. It doesn't have to be hard. I could have just tried to do it the old school way. It would have worked. It just would have took me longer, right? And I had a vision. I'm willing to fail. I'm 100% willing to fail at what I'm doing and then pick myself up and learn. And I think that has been the biggest thing that I've been able to get through. Like I've been not getting attached to the result. The result is going to happen if I'm not attached to it, because if I fail when I'm attached to that result, then I fall and I get off track.
And you're all bummed.
Yeah.
You're all burnt out.
Yeah.
Mad,
but also
upset.
Here's the other part.
That's a great point, by the way. I think a lot of people get upset when they lose an at bat. They get an at bat. It's already hard enough as it is. And then they're like, I hate this business.
Yeah. But there was also a part where I made it a very pointed decision, because marketing is like a magnet. It either attracts you to me or it repels you away. And when I started looking at, okay, this person didn't match with me, they didn't say yes when I had the meeting, they're not a right fit for me.
Yeah.
And it's going to be better for me long term. And I took some losses in the beginning, a lot. I wore it. And then I started to learn. And I kept going and kept going. And now I know what to say, when to say. I got it down. And it's just repeating over and over and over, and not taking it personal when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's okay, because I don't identify myself as a title insurance guy. That's not that's my life.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the title, but it's not your job.
It's a job. That's it. It's not who I am.
Yeah.
Right? I sell title insurance. Actually, what I actually do is I inspire people to make change and make their life better, and I happen to get paid in title orders.
Outstanding.
I don't sell title insurance, right? I help people be better. And then when they're better and they get results, they give me deals.
That's why I wanted you on so bad, bro, because I feel like there is specific individuals that I know that have a very unique way of shifting their mindset. And especially in this type of market conditions, I think a lot more agents really and lenders really need to really understand that, is that if you look at this as a struggle, or you look at this business as transactional and you're a clerical role, it's going to be very difficult. But when you come in with leadership, and leadership is what people hire, they're hiring you because they need something done, and you're a consultant as you facilitate the transaction for them. It's such a night and day difference. And in a specific difficult market, maintaining that type of positive mindset and not getting attached to the outcome. Because as long as you can keep getting up to the plate and you can keep swinging and you're smiling and you keep swinging and swinging, that's really the difference maker. The rest of the guys that are on the bench that don't have that mental aptitude are going to be gone. And when that condition shifts, and I've been there, we've actually talked about this before, it's like being on the freeway and there's no freaking cars, bro. You're like the dude. You're the only guy that everybody starts thinking of because when times are tough, you were the positive guy, Jeremy. Now I'm getting business. The first person I think about is you. Hell yeah, I want to surround myself with people that are like you. And it becomes crazy.
Yeah, I mean, people never forget how you make them feel, right? It's the old Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou, right? One of my favorite quotes.
Yeah, and so I don't get business from everyone, but I make sure that I still change their day in some kind of manner. I love doing that. It's one of my gifts, right? I know that I have a contagious energy and I make people smile, and I just do my best to share it with as many people as I can. In fact, I'm working on something right now that's starting to take root, and I won't mention the company and what's happening because it hasn't happened yet. It's almost there. And the person that is leading this was going through something on a personal level, and I saw it on Instagram. And I just reached out as a human, and I just started writing him and helping him through the process because I had already gone through a lot of what he was going through. And I didn't have, it wasn't any intention of like, oh, I'm going to get business from this guy. He's a producer. Here we are, fast forward a year and a half later or so, and we're working on a pretty big project because I just was a human and was like, I want to help somebody. And that's the way I approach it. Like, not everyone's going to use me, but I help everyone. I help everyone the most I can.
And that's so fulfilling, bro. I was talking to somebody specifically about this. And I said, one of the things I remember when my daughter was born, all that anticipation, and congrats because you have another baby, right?
Yeah, thank you. Number four,
bro. How fast this happens.
You can see how gray I am already.
Dude, that's nuts. But I remember, so you know what I'm talking about. So on your firstborn, you remember the anticipation because obviously, well, I did the back because you still had your son. But when your baby's on the way, my mentality, my thought was that the doctor is going to give me like a cigar and a pat on the back and the whole nine. Like it was going to be like a celebration, right? And all of a sudden my daughter comes out and he's just like, here you go, and walked out. And I was, what the hell? I felt so robbed in the experience. Like I felt so cut short, it just, something was off. And I hated that. After that moment, I started really thinking, especially with like clients and stuff, and maybe it's not something good I should do is get emotionally attached sometimes to certain transactions. But that feeling of feeling so transactional, I'm like, I never want to feel like that. I never want people to feel like that.
Well, I think, let's circle back on the birth. You had unrealistic expectations of what was going to happen.
Yeah. I thought the stork was going to land in the room.
And so, but we do that as humans. We create stories of what we expect to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, we get super disappointed. And you can use that as a lesson or you just continue the pattern you choose, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to be mindful of the stories we tell ourselves. I mean, when we had Nadia, it was completely different. I didn't meet Dylan until he was 4 months old. So I didn't know what it was like. That was my first birth.
Yeah.
And it was...
Surprise.
It was quite the experience, right? And luckily we had doulas. We had 2 doulas that were really helpful. And it was really helpful for me and her. And I just try to live in the moment, like especially with that. Like this is so special. And then, chaos happened at the end because they pulled her placenta and she was bleeding everywhere. And like, it was just nuts. And that was like, whoa. And then Naomi, when she was born, there was a whole nother separate where her shoulder got stuck. She came out purple. And like in that moment was when I realized how big childbirth and how dangerous like, I think that we take for granted modern medicine or even like I trip out on this stuff all the time. These lights, electricity, we're on a podcast getting recorded. People are going to watch. Like I can press a button on my phone and talk to someone across the world and see their face. Like I trip out on things all the time like that. And in this moment was childbirth. Like, it is such a beautiful thing and yet so dangerous. And we don't think about that. And it was like, how do people ever die? Like Oregon Trail, she died from childbirth. You know, like I saw that. It could have happened. And yet we just take things for granted.
Absolutely.
Like we take so many things for granted in this life that are mind blowing. Like if we brought our great grandpas back and put them in a car right now, could you imagine putting your grandpa in a Tesla and a self-drove? You would freak out.
Yeah.
Right?
It's in the Jetsons.
Yeah. Right. Like
yeah.
The Jetsons didn't even, we're talking about people. There's just so many things in our life right now that we take for granted that to me are mind blowing.
It's a wonderful world we live in, but I really do think that really the understanding and the change of perspective is so critical and so important nowadays, especially now with all the noise that's going on with the world, with all the things that are happening in real estate market, rates going up, and affordability and in different market areas where businesses are slowing down or there's high crime. I feel like there's all this tension going on, right?
Well, I think that there's tension in our culture and our country as a whole. Yeah. I think that the biggest problem that we have as a country is the inability to have civil discourse, right? You and I don't agree on things, but we're respectful to each other. We care about each other. We'll say thank you, and we don't agree. And if we could get back to when our country was started and we exchanged ideas, right? And we're able to talk and say, you know what? Thank you for sharing with me. I don't agree with you, but I respect you, because it's turned into fuck you.
In silos.
I hate you, right? You don't agree. I'm red, you're blue, you're the, no, we're red, white, and blue, right?
Yeah.
We're all in this together. And the world too. Like there are so many things that it's the dangers, right? Of allowing media to control what you think and not having friends to talk. And not enough people talk to strangers, in my opinion. I love talking to strangers because they have stories to tell. And when you start talking to strangers, you can disagree. And as long as you come from a place of curiosity, it's one of the things I love about having kids. They're so curious about everything. And they remind me to be curious. And I'm curious about humans. So strangers, talking to strangers, although maybe uncomfortable, I learned something. It's fun. Like you never know who you're standing next to. You just don't.
True fact.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'll give you an example. In my gym, I work out this little gym, this little town in Texas, and there's a dude who's been blown up 7 times. He's about to set the world record for bench press.
What?
Or, yes.
No way.
His name's Kenny. Awesome dude. And I just started talking to him. And I found out all this stuff. And he's the cool. There's a company called Rush Trucking. They're the largest supplier of like garbage trucks or something. They're a $9 billion company. The CFO of the company works out in my gym. Like
sick.
I just talk to people. I'm like, what the heck? Like,
but you know what though? That takes a particular mindset. 'Cause I think that's also going back to the authentic piece, being authentic. That it's there's one thing to make connections with a hidden agenda involved. Hey, you want to buy and sell real estate? Hey, how's it going? Hey, here's my business card, right? And it's another thing just to have a genuine curiosity of the person. And that goes back to the like and trust. Before a transaction ever takes place, they have to like and trust you. And it's just one more person that gets put into your sphere of influence. Whether they do a deal now or they do a deal down the road, who really cares? But just being genuinely curious with that person, right? I had a random situation the other day. So I had Jason on. You know Jason Stewart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Epic Fighting,
Epic
right?
Fighting, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I had Jason in here the other day. And he had an event at one of his houses.
You still got a big fro?
Yeah. So sick. So one of the guys that was there with us, he used to own, or was one of the previous owners of Converse shoes. I didn't know. We were just there. I was there with my buddy Tony. Tony's kind of a big influencer, like in fitness, social media kind of thing. Has a lot of followers. And so we just started chatting it up. And it was just such a random conversation. Like we just started talking, and the guy he opened up his backpack and started giving us like all this like swag. Like he's like, hey, you want some socks? And we're like, what? He's like, yeah, I got a matching hat for it. Here you go. I have a clothing company, here in SoCal, and we promote for the fight, and we do their shorts and whatnot. But yeah, I brought a whole bunch of stuff. Cool. We just sat down. We started eating tacos, and we just started talking about his business, and then how the money that he made off of the Nike deal, and the whole background of how they acquired the company and what they do to maintain the name brand, and down to how they manufactured and what they changed in manufacturing. And when they moved it to China, ironically, the quality of shoes in China were better than the ones that they were doing in like Michigan. They just didn't give a shit. And when they went higher quality, sales went down because it just, whatever reason, the vibe was, right? It didn't look handmade. And so they had to go back to China to like, hey, don't do such a good job, right? Like random details like that. And with my buddy Tony, I'm sitting there, I'm like, and we're just sitting here having tacos. And we got this whole guy's thing. He gives us his office is in Del Mar. And he's like, hey, why don't you guys stop by? I'll get you guys fitted with some stuff and don't even worry about it. Wow. Just because of being nice. Just genuine conversation.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying. It's just being curious.
Yeah.
Right? Because we can only see and hear what our brain tells us to see and hear. And your experience in life is so much different than mine. Like you've been to war. I haven't. How will I ever understand or try to understand what that's like? I can't unless I ask questions. And I still can't really ever understand, but I can try. And just being curious, like, hi, how are you? It's amazing what happens. And if you want to tie it back to real estate, you never know who knows who. You should treat everyone with love and respect, because there's always that person that's related to someone of someone.
Yeah.
And it could be the deal that changes your life, because that one person could introduce you to 10, 15, 20 people.
Bro, I'm telling you right now, when going through the program has changed my outlook on the way of just connecting with people. And
Which program?
With Through Choice.
Yep.
In particular. Changed so much of the outlook of just being empathetic. Just, that's it.
Well, because you just never know what someone's going through.
Yeah.
On which day.
On which day.
We all go through it. We really do. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
Right? I'm pretty positive, but there's days I go through it too.
I didn't tell you this. I almost got shot last week. I did. I swear to God, I almost got shot. And like 5 people told me, they're like, dude, you could have got shot. So I have a client that we're helping through a process. She was actually the seller. So I'm working with the buyer on this deal. And something was happening with the seller. I can't go into details because this is actually ongoing right now. And so I talked to the seller, and she's on the phone bawling with me. Bawling. When they did the trash out on her house, because I can't say she was a hoarder. She had a lot of personal possessions in this house. And they were insensitive in the way that they emptied the house out. And this lady's senior, older. And I just felt so uncomfortable that night. I couldn't sleep that night. So somewhere midway through the day, I'm like, you know what? I have a contractor. We're supposed to go out to this property. It's a fixer-upper deal, renovation deal. So let's just drive out there. So we drive all the way out to Campo. Okay. Get out to this property, and I'm looking around, and it's like the sun's kind of coming down, and I'm talking about smack dab in the middle of Campo. Mm-hmm. And so I hop over the fence, right? And I'm just walking up this dirt road, all cool, right? And the lady just sees me and just starts having an anxiety panic attack. And unfortunately, because the house was supposed to be vacant, I don't know who this lady looks like. I called her, she hadn't responded. So I'm just going to go over there, knock on the door, and go take a look at what's happening on this place, right? And we stopped, and I literally just prayed with her. Like, we stopped, and I said, do you mind if we pray? And so we prayed, and she calmed down. Everything was kind of normal. And she's like, told me about some personal experience that had happened on the property. Crazy story. I can't even believe she shared it with me. I'm like, okay, here's who I'm here with. This is what we're doing. And ironically, because of that given situation, an attorney's involved and the broker's involved. So the next day, I call her attorney and we start touching base. What was supposed to be, I was initially anticipating a confrontational call. Dude, we were broing out. He's actually going to come in the office. We're going to do some VA workshop stuff because he does it pro bono, doing trust.
So how did you almost get shot?
So he starts telling me, he goes, where you're at is an Indian reservation. There's no like sheriff out here, bro. So you're going to this lady's house, older lady. Obviously, you're Hispanic. I'm wearing a t-shirt and some sweats. He goes, you look like you crossed the border. Just the fact that you were in that street, like it wasn't even street, it's dirt road. Just because of the fact that you were in the dirt road, you're lucky someone didn't pop a shot at you. I'm like, really? He goes, we have migrants coming through here all the time. And this is like native land. This is not your regular, unincorporated kind. Like we have natives living here. Damn. Okay. Cool. Could have got shot. Awesome. So I called back the lady and told her, hey, I talked to your attorney. And she's like, you're lucky. You would have gotten shot. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, especially the fact that sun was going down. You look like da-da-da-da-da-da. And these guys have no problem. And they know me and my husband are older. And the first thing they're going to do is come over and protect us. And you're lucky you didn't get shot. I'm like, oh, yeah. So-and-so told me. Then I talked to someone else and they're like, bro, what are you thinking? You could have got shot? And I was like, how am I the only fool here that doesn't know that I could have got shot right now?
Well, how'd you miss that? But more, how did you miss it? And how does the person you're with miss it? Because you're out in the middle of nowhere.
And here's what's funny. I'm licensed.
Trespassing.
I know.
Trespassing.
And I know the area and I know it's bad. But the thing is for me personally, is that I felt my intentions were not bad. And I could have went there carrying my gun, right? I could have went there and you know how I play. I said, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to show any sort of, to be like some kind of threat in any manner.
Yeah. And you're just inviting trouble at that point.
Sort of. But, the good thing was the fact that I didn't, because afterwards, the attorney was more than happy. The fact that I went out of my way to go do something like that. The seller, more than happy that now she's working with us on her deal. The broker that had the thing going sideways, nobody was communicating. Somehow the involvement of getting into the situation and putting myself at risk like that somehow got these guys respect individually and was like, all right, let's work this out. This is a very simple thing. There was opportunities missed. Now everyone's literally kosher. And this lady's like a couple months away from losing the property. Mm-hmm. So she's winning. The attorney's like, man, you just did my job. The broker's like, thank you. This thing was blowing up. My contractor, everybody's on kosher. But I think at that point, the situation wasn't the greatest situation to go out there, but taking the initiative just to slow down, have a conversation, just connect on a human level, as risky as it was, solved a lot of problem. Mm-hmm. So, and that was it. And she called me this morning again, and she literally told me, she's like, I felt so bad the way I was like, so upset at the moment. I said, rightfully so. Your identity is in these bins. And I started thinking to myself, man, can you imagine this lady sitting there bawling, and I'm in an area that's kind of sketch, and anybody who would come outside to witness what is going on is probably thinking I'm doing something horrible in first impression, right? And the other thing I can think of is like, hey, we need God right now. And that was it. And I put my hands in that, and everything worked out just fine. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. When people hold on to possessions, it's really interesting what happens, right? And years of accumulation of materials that they assign meaning to. And we all do it one way or another. You assign meaning to something. And then when it gets taken from you, right?
Disrespected.
Yeah. My grandma was a hoarder. I can say that's my grandma.
Yeah.
To the tune of, she had a storage unit that you could back a semi into.
Yeah.
Right, with stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember her crying, and my dad just didn't care. Listen, you're throwing that away. Just throw everything away.
Yeah.
Oh, she lost it. Yeah. But you can think about anything that you assign some kind of value to. If you lose it, it's painful.
That was the missing piece. And so, as we started our conversation about being human and taking the mask off and the fake and the drive and all that kind of stuff, and just having some empathy and being more grounded and connected. So when I was speaking with the broker, that's exactly what we talked about. And he says, he goes, "How old are you?" And I'm like, "I'm 49, for all that I don't know." I show it. And he says, "I've been teaching at USD for a long time, and I teach ethics. And this is one of the things I've been trying to teach my students about, is you have to stop and recognize your environment. Like, who are you playing with here? And recognize the cues in people, right? If these millennials that are used to jumping on their phone and doing DocuSign and going really fast and knocking things out, that when you're working specifically with senior folks, it's uncomfortable for them, right? Number one, now you have uncomfortable. Number two, she's in a very difficult financial situation. So she's stressing. There's plenty of equity in this property, and she's about to lose it. Number three, you just ripped this huge Band-Aid off and threw her entire identity into dumpsters.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody stopped and recognized that could have been a problem. Like, you wonder why people are upset right now? And I said, "Bro, that's exactly what dawned onto me." And so I literally just stopped what I was doing, got in my car, called my contractor, and we drove over there. And that was it. And he says, that's what's missing in our business right now. And a lot of people are going to have a difficult time in this next market condition until they start realizing the reason why people are selling currently, especially when you have low interest rates, they either have a lot of debt. That debt leads into arguments. It leads into divorces. It leads into a job loss because their business is now slowing down. Their property was worth X and now they have to drop it $100,000. So in their mind, they're losing $100,000. You have all this emotion right now that's involved. And just to walk in there with complete ignorance of what the given terrain is like, he's like, that's not good. That's not good. And we need more people in our business that can recognize and acknowledge those things. And they'll go way far if they just did that. And yeah, that was our conversation afterwards. But yeah, it wasn't the smartest move, but I rolled the dice.
It made a great story.
I rolled the dice.
Yeah.
I've been shot at. It's not it's nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome, bro. Well, I appreciated you genuinely coming down because like I mentioned before, your outlook on the way you see the business is very unique. And I think we need much more of that. And I'm sure the people that are watching or agents that are watching can take some, not just some tips, but have some thought and really, take some of your advice.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I received that. And, like we've been good friends for a while. So I'm just a mirror of my friends. And I appreciate your friendship and always looking out for me. And if anyone needs help, I'm sure you're going to put my information. If you just want to talk, you want to find out some different things, some tips, I'm open to conversations. Oh,
you'll be tagged. You'll be tagged in it.
Yeah.
Just hit the link below. You'll see my boy Jeremy in there.
And we're going to crank the fun meter to red now.
We're on full tilt. Yeah. Full tilt. Awesome, bro. Well, thanks for coming to the lab.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.